eliminate this crucial process, be concise, cut every word or paragraph that does not advance the story. Short sentences, short paragraphs, and active verbs make web writing more readable. Okay, so that is online journalism. If you have any questions, let me know. Let's move on to media law. Some coaching tips. Check your story for accuracy. Seek documents to substantiate sources' claims. Seek sources with alternate points of view. Role play. If you were the source or the source's attorney, what would you find libelous or objectionable in the story? So let's go over libel. Libel is essentially a false and defamatory attack in written form on a person's reputation or character. Broadcast defamation is libel because there is usually a written script. Oral or spoken defamation is slander, according to Donald Gilmore. The script is not limited to a news story, the author explains. It can take the form of headlines, photos, cartoons, film, tape, records, signs, bumper stickers, and advertisements. Several libel suits have also resulted from messages that people posted to online discussion groups. If the defamatory statements are published, whether online or in print, they can still be considered libelous. Truth is a defense in libel suits. Anyone can sue or threaten to sue for libel, claiming injury to his reputation or her reputation. The real concern is whether the person has grounds enough to win. The key factors to consider are whether you published untrue information that hurt the reputation of an identifiable person and whether you were either negligent or reckless in failing to check the information. Are you publishing something that may not be truthful? Are you carelessly publishing something that is inaccurate? Are you publishing something accusatory that you haven't checked out? Are you publishing something that clearly identifies a person and harms that person's reputation? If your answer is yes to any of those questions, you could be in trouble for libel. Next part goes into an interesting case, New York Times Corporation versus Sullivan. Those standards were the ones the US Supreme Court applied in 1964 in a landmark libel case, New York Times Corporation versus Sullivan. The case stems from an advertisement the newspaper accepted in 1960, trying to raise money for the Committee to Defend Martin Luther King. The ad claimed that King had been arrested 7 times and that his home had been bombed, claimed that Black students who had staged nonviolent civil rights demonstration at Alabama State University had been the target of police brutality. The advertisement accused the police department in Montgomery, Alabama of being armed with shotguns and using tear gas to subdue students. Police Commissioner L.B. Sullivan sued for libel. He contended that the mention of police in the ad referred to him. He claimed the police did not ring the college campus or padlock the college dining hall as the ad had claimed. Furthermore, Dr. King had been arrested 4 times, not 7, and 3 of the 4 arrests had occurred before Sullivan was commissioner. Sullivan won in the lower courts, and Sullivan had contended that the mention of police in the ad referred to him and that the ad contained factual errors that damaged his reputation. Sullivan won in the lower courts and the Alabama Supreme Court, but the U.S. Supreme Court reversed the decision in its landmark ruling about actual malice. Malice in this context does not mean ill will or intent to harm someone. It means that you published something knowing it was false or carelessly published something without checking whether it was true. The court placed the burden of proving libel on the plaintiff, the person who is suing. The justices made this a constitutional issue, applying the First Amendment right of a free press to publish matters of public concern. The Times versus Sullivan ruling applied only to people who are public officials. The application was later broadened to include public figures. Goes into a definition about a public official, definition about public figures, private figures. The difference between being a public or private figure is crucial because the standards for proving libel can differ. Many states have made it easier for private persons to prove libel than for public figures. The Supreme Court has left it up to the states to determine their own standards of liability for private figures. The importance of accuracy. Accuracy is paramount for a good journalist. Every mistake you make jeopardizes the organization's credibility with readers and viewers. Because of that credibility factor, newspapers throughout the country print corrections every day, many for the incorrect spelling of names. That's another reason why you should always double check the names in your stories. Anonymous sources, in addition to verifying sources, it is also important to identify them. However, when doing investigative reporting or getting confidential sources, particularly in government, sources often refuse to divulge information unless they receive a promise of anonymity. Most news organizations prefer to avoid that promise, but reporters still depend on these anonymous sources. Federal shield law. Most states have laws that protect reporters from revealing their sources if a case comes to court where testimony from the source is needed. But there is no federal law offering such protection, even though attempts to pass one have been proposed for many years. In several instances, reporters who have refused to reveal their sources in federal cases have been sentenced to jail. Showing copy to sources. Should you show your story to sources or read it to them before you publish it? Many of your sources will ask you to do that, and many editors will say you shouldn't. They claim the risks are too great that sources will recant what they have told you or ask you to delete any information that puts them in a bad light. If you don't show the entire story to your source, it is considered acceptable, even wise, to ask a source about any technical information you may not fully understand. You can read what you have written and ask the source to check its accuracy. Corrections. The most common cause of lawsuits is carelessness. Most news media don't publish material they know or suspect is false. Although newspapers and broadcast media get sued by people targeted in major investigative projects, the majority of libel suits stem from much less important stories, incorrect captions, defamatory headlines, and inaccuracy in a police story or a feature can result in a libel suit. Goes on about privilege, absolute privilege. This means that public officials, including law enforcement officials, can make statements in the course of their official duties without fear of being sued for libel. Qualified privilege. As a member of the media, you have qualified privilege. You may print defamatory statements made by people who are absolutely privileged as long as you are being fair and accurate and the information is from a public proceeding or public record. But if your report contains error, you could lose that qualified protection. Just going to move this to the other room.